Before we get into this episode, I want to say something quickly. If you're someone who's already spent years and thousands of dollars building your brand, and you feel like it isn't growing at the speed or scale it deserves, this might help. We're offering free one-on-one coaching calls to help experienced brand owners figure out what's actually blocking their growth and what to do about it. We'll sit down with you, walk through your brand, and help you get clarity on your next steps for growth. I've been working in fashion for over 10 years, and across hundreds of conversations and dozens of consulting projects with brand founders, I've seen the same problems come up over and over again. And most of them are fixable with the right strategy. This free coaching call is meant to give you that clarity, to help you stop guessing and start moving forward with confidence and simplicity. These calls are completely free. But since they take a lot of time for me and my team, we can only offer a limited number. So if you're serious, apply using the link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Perfect, Myla. Thank you. Thank you for the time. And again, thank you for the flexibility.
Thank you. No problem.
By the way, so Myla, very interesting name, by the way, because it's Myla and then Pizzerli, I'm guessing Italian.
Yes, my husband is Italian, and I have a very lifelong connection to Italy, even before meeting my husband. So many people say that I'm more Italian than my husband. He's from Milan, so I took his second name, and my first name is a abbreviation of Marie-Louise. That is a very long name, so I couldn't say when I was a kid, so I just shortened it and called myself Myla. So I've given my name to myself.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Okay, and give us a brief introduction then, Myla, just so people can have some context on you, the brand, the story. You don't have to go super in depth, but so people can know who you're going to be learning from, essentially.
Yeah. Actually, people that know me in Stockholm or in the fashion industry knows that I've been in the industry since ever. I started to work extra in retail when I was 16. I was part of a fantastic Swedish brand called Blåa in the 80s. That was the only brand. I worked there for 9 years, and then I followed the daughter in the family that she started her own brand called Filipa K. That is actually a quite big brand, Swedish brand. I was there for 13 years as head of product, and very much part of the growth of Filipa K between 95 and 2008. And after that, I started to consult and worked a lot with Swedish fashion brands, helping them to set up strategies and goals and processes and everything. And one of them, from Y-Red, I helped brands like Y-Red or Dagmar or even TOTEME. I was part when they just started up. And one of these brands, Y-Red, was a guy called Jonas. We worked together also in the first company, so we knew each other. As you said before, it's a small industry, everyone knows everyone. And we got this idea of starting a new brand that we saw that was not done before, a brand that was a Scandinavian brand that was focusing on the accessory, because as you know, Swedish brands are very, very talented in building concept or lifestyle brands. While Southern Europe, like Italy and France, they're usually coming from the handicraft or the bags or the shoes. So we said that no one have done that, no one have focused on that as a brand, but still with the Scandinavian point of view. So we really saw a gap in the market to offer something that we call smart luxury, something that is luxurious because it's made in Italy. It has a very high quality level, but it is more accessible, like many Swedish brands are, and but still with a minimalistic, high-level design, but with Italian handicraft. So that was the idea, to make the combination of made in Italy and Italian or Scandinavian design, which we founded in 2011. I was a late bloomer. I had a lot of experience, worked a long, long time in the fashion industry before. So in one way, it was very natural. In one way, I never thought I was going to start a brand at that time. But when the idea comes to you, you have your entrepreneur inside you, and you when you see the concept and you see how it can work. So we founded it as like an international brand from the beginning. We saw there was a potential for this brand to be distributed all over globally.
Interesting. And can you give me an overview of early days, like the strategy, the first steps to getting the brand started? So it was, getting deciding on the product. Was the opportunity very clear? Like there's an opportunity for this specific category, for this specific positioning. Like was it very strategic, or it was more kind of like when you
Yes,
started
I would say
something and
it was. Yeah, I would say it was very strategic, also because I was not so interested to start a brand. Just when you're young, maybe you start a brand, you just feel
yeah,
and
for the
you have
hell of
the
it. Yeah,
product and
yeah.
you launch it, and then eventually you find out. But with the experience I had, I knew that we could not have any success if we didn't have a clear strategy. So the positioning was very important. That we saw this positioning of made in Italy, but still at like a accessible price level. We started with we knew from the beginning that it was going to be a product that was shoes and eventually bags, but we started with the sandal because it all started in a vacation in Italy, in south of Italy, in Puglia, where we today have a house. And we have spent so many summers there. We had a lot of friends coming by, and most of them were working in the fashion industry because that's the friends you have, when you work this long time. And everybody bought their local sandals. And we said, like, no of these girls will actually wear these sandals when they come home. They use it for the vacation and then they throw them away or they hide them in the wardrobe and they forget about it. And we said, like, why is it not like more like a contemporary luxury brand, like a smart luxury brand, offering a sandal that is more urban? So we really started with like the urban sandal, knowing that eventually we will also add shoes, boots, winter bags, and so on. But in 2011, we positioned ourselves very, very narrowly and said, let's be famous of one thing. And then once we are a little bit more like ahead, then we can add other products. And not only the product, but also the girl, as we call her, the ATP girl. We defined her very well as a woman, like many of these girls that was traveling with us, like very independent, very hardworking women, very international. Maybe they can be based in Stockholm or in New York or wherever. They are smart. They like fashion, but they like more style. They're building their own like style concept, and they build it on that. And so they can mix like very expensive premium brand with something more contemporary because they don't need to have the confirmation of wearing a brand that shows that you're wearing that brand. So that was very, very important for us from the beginning. And one of our style icons that we had like on our mood board were Nico in Velvet Underground. She was a super cool woman in the 60s, working with Andy Warhol and Lou Reed, and she was part of this group, Velvet Underground, and she was singing a song called All Tomorrow's Parties, and therefore we named the brand after her, and then we called it ATP, Atelier, because it's handmade. So everything is like in the brand name, the whole strategy, I would say.
Very interesting. Yeah, so very, very strategic, very conscious approach to starting the brand. The most defining and important factors being knowing what product to offer, how to present it in terms of pricing, communications, and who the customer and the ideal
Yeah.
persona was.
And then one more thing that was super important, especially for me, was like in Filipa K, I was like initiating the sustainability work. So it was also very important, like in this concept, make something out of a sustainable point of view. And when you're super small, you don't have so many options. So of course, the material is one thing that many people do, like organic cotton or something. And in leather, it's quite challenging. So we decided to start with vegetable tan vaqueta. Today, we use more materials because today there are more certifications out there. But in the beginning, there was no such options. And also the decision to make it in Italy, because I've been traveling all over the world with production all my life, and I know the differences. And I knew producing in one place, sourcing in one place, having everything like in Italy, every small factory, you source the soles around the corner, the inner soles in the other corner, the heels. Everything is so connected and it's so easy. And I could see that doing this, we didn't need to overproduce. So we only produce what we need. We don't work with suppliers that have minimum quantities. So we can just produce after the demand that we are seeing. So we don't build high stock
Yeah,
levels.
inventories and high risks. Yeah, so
And that was
both.
like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so from like the business model was also very strategic because you saw foundationally the idea of being a sustainability inspired brand and using sustainability not only as a positioning advantage, of course, because it's a very unique place to be positioned, especially early on, but also from a business model perspective, because you didn't have to take that much inventory risk. And even that was also very strategically planned and approached that way.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. And what about from a management perspective? Was it you and, as you said, Jonas from the very
Yes.
early days, or also like capital behind investors, or was just
No, that was also a decision we took, that we wanted to be independent. We wanted to build this in a way with our experience. So we were building it, and we were like working on the side with other concepts. I was still consulting in the fashion industry for many years, and Jonas was doing the same. So we built it without external capital, which meant that we also did all the work ourselves. And in 2014, I hired my first employee, but a freelance girl helping with me with the design. But otherwise, it was 2014. And then after 2014, we entered the international market by getting in at Net-a-Porter and also the Line. That was like an amazing store in New York. And that opened the doors. And after that, we started to hire the teams. When we had the money, we hired the
hmm.
team, or we were doing it ourselves. But also, like, we also work with suppliers, very close with our suppliers. So they also like help us doing a big part of the work. I don't need to have like a big production team, just
Right,
like
so being very
control.
flexible with production, inventory, MOQs, all those different things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Mm.
Interesting. And again, this foundationally, the advantage was your experience in relationships in the industry that allowed you to be very strategic with the approach and therefore increase the probability of success, but also have the reputation so that people that were working alongside with you had the trust and the flexibility to, for you to make decisions with less risk and more flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like, not that we had connections, because the suppliers I had to source again. I didn't have these suppliers.
The reputation, at least,
Yeah, but still, like, to present yourself and having an idea and knowing what you're talking about, then people trust you. And of course, we also had like trade shows in Copenhagen that they believed in us. They offered us space without letting us pay too much. So yeah, we for sure, I think that is one of our key points by growing when you're small, that we had people supporting us, that won peers in the industry, that they wanted us to do well. So, and that helped a lot.
Interesting. And financially, was it just savings, really, or debt?
Savings, but I mean, it was also like, since we were working with other things, we had another income, so we didn't have to cost anything. I had an office that was for the consulting agency, and we used the same office also for ATP. And so we built like step by step, but no bank loans, no. I mean, it was just our own money. It was not even savings. It's like we were investing, and like from the beginning, we started to sell the first season, so we could get like a small profit, and then we could reinvest that, another profit. So during all these years, we until like the last years, because it has really been really challenging for the whole industry. But before that, the first 10 years, we were like profitable every year, and we were just reinvesting at the next step.
Mm, okay. And I'm guessing the model has always been mainly wholesale driven,
It
especially early
started
days.
being wholesale driven for sure. That was also a way of financing it, because starting with wholesale, you get your income, when it's coming 6 months in in advance so you can plan
Yeah, you have
accordingly.
the deposits to pay for
Yeah,
production.
exactly. So we could make it work around, but we actually started with e-com from the first year. But I would say like the last 5 years, 6 years, it has been growing a lot more. So today, wholesale is maybe 55%, and the rest is like our own channels.
Interesting.
Today the balance is more like 64 to 55-45.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, before we talk a little bit more about what's happening now and the differences from early days, still pinning back the conversation to early days of starting ATP. What in hindsight, like if you had to go through the process all over again, but with the understanding of today's fashion landscape, how would you, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a really good and tricky question. And I'm not really a person that looks back, and I think that everything you do has a meaning, even the mistakes that you are doing. Sometimes, some days I feel like, oh, we should have been more bold. We should maybe have taken in more capital in the beginning. On the other hand, I said, no, I'm so happy that I didn't do that because that made us be able to take all this and this and that decisions. So no, I must say that I'm actually quite happy about what we did in the beginning because that made us independent. We could also learn from our own experiences in the beginning. So
Right.
I cannot find anything.
Okay. And like instead of asking what would have you done differently, I guess if you had to start over today, understanding the current environment and the differences in the industry, or the development of e-commerce, the development of social media, again, with your
Mm.
current understanding of the fashion landscape, how would you start this brand differently, strategically speaking?
Maybe I would
Like what where
have.
have there been a difference in
Understand
categories and
what you
in
mean.
marketing strategy? Like, yeah.
Maybe I would, because since my background was like product and also Jonas, the sales, wholesale is quite, I mean, it's a super complex part, but still we both had experience in it. But none of us had very big experience in e-commerce and all the digital landscape and how it worked. So maybe we would have had like a third partner or someone else that was very talented in this from the beginning, so we could have taken more advantages of like the early, how to say,
Yeah, like
gains
faster
you
decision
get when
making,
you're.
more, yeah.
I can see other companies that start as a D2C company a little bit later, of course, but in 2017, 18, it was everybody just started D2C. And most of them have, almost all of them have later added wholesale because it was impossible to make the brand awareness without having both parts. So I'm happy that we had both parts, but maybe I would have earlier strategically pushed more the e-com part to be even more independent.
Right.
Maybe, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
We
And
were
what
also
about
lucky too. We were born 2011, was the same year Instagram was like born as well, or the year before. So we were also lucky to be part of the Instagram, like the phase.
inception period?
Everything was like easy, you know. So we got a lot for free. Today it's much more difficult to start and just get discovered, as we were. We were discovered at Instagram by Netta Porter. Today, I think it's much tougher to do that, or at least it needs more money. But for us, it didn't cost anything. It just needed someone that believed in us, that posted on Instagram, and the people following that person saw it and said, "Okay, I trust this person. This is the brand I would like to have." Net
Hmm.
Porter.
Interesting. And just as things have become much tougher in a lot of ways, what things do you think have become much easier since back then?
But the communication, of course, I mean, it is easier to reach
Yes.
out and to yes, and all the technique. Of course, it's much better today for sure.
Yeah, so basically what a kid can do with an iPhone today to share and connect with an audience is something that you needed an entire team to develop 10 years ago.
Yeah, you can say that. Yes.
Mm, okay. And what about the value proposition? So basically, do you think value proposition is something that is always consistent in terms of good product always work, or it's a combination of good product at the right time with the right market opportunity.
Yes. I for sure think that you need the product. If you don't have the product, I don't believe you can just market everything, because at the end of the day, someone has to buy that product. So I think the product is super, super important, and that can always be developed. But then, of course, the brand part, I would say, is the most. So it's product and brand. Those, if you have those two, you can add on communication, you can add on ads or marketing spend or
Marketing, traffic, all these.
stores, whatever you can add on. But if you have like the brand and the product, that is like the baseline to be able to start.
Interesting. And when talking about those baselines, brand and product, what foundational questions do you ask yourself when trying to develop good product and when trying to develop good brand?
I mean, when we are developing our product, of course, we have a very defined strategy. What are the framework for that product, and the brand DNA and the design is of course crucial. That you can in some way recognize the product in its design language. I think it's super important. Then, of course, is all the other added design values, like to have a well-designed product, like in terms of details, comfort, and other
Yeah,
things.
technical,
Or
more the technical aspects.
that's the more technical aspects. But I think that the most important thing is to have a product that people recognize in some way. Not that you can like invent a loafer because no one have done it before, but you have to add something in the design language that makes it unique. And that is also connected to the brand, and the brand going back to who she is, our customer, and in how she lives, what kind of choices she does, what is her personal values, what is important for her. I mean, for everything from the product, how she gets inspired, and also once she wants to wear the product, what style she has, what kind of how she can style our product together. And then the brand, of course, last but not least, is like, what are we communicating, and how do we make people feel? Because that, I think, is what the brand is about. And that is the most, it's difficult, because once the brand is a little bit recognized, like on the markets that we are more known, people are following our brand and they recognize, and we get very, very positive feedback about how we are communicating our brand. That has always been from the day one. It's like we have that, we call it the lol part, that is something that you don't take yourself so seriously. I mean, the product and the strategy is super important, but like in the communication, fashion can be so pretentious, and we don't want to be that. We want to be more warm and including in our brand. So that has always been like a very, very important part of our brand, like identity. But then, of course, when you have to reach out to new markets or new customers, like what you do first. Sometimes in wholesale, they discover your product first on the shelf in the department store. They don't see the storyline behind. Or sometimes the opposite. You see the stories, you see the brand, but you don't know exactly where to buy it. Of course, you can buy it online, but people still want to go and feel products most of the time.
Right. So foundationally, the most important variables of the formula are brand plus product, not as a guarantee for success, but as a guarantee for at least progress towards
Yeah,
success in some
exactly.
direction.
But then I think that the communication in the brand is what makes the difference.
Right.
That is also where you differentiate. So you cannot so the brand and the communication has been super important for us. It's something that we've always been investing in, even if we don't have much money to invest. We always invested like a lot of time and soul into it. So and to keep it, but also to evolve it. And
Right. Interesting. And how can, early startup entrepreneurs start at least consistently working in those directions? What do they need to consistently be thinking about to develop good product? What do they think to consistently be thinking about to develop a good brand? And maybe we can focus on product first so that we can keep these two difficult questions separate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But the product again, it's the identity. It's like the design identity, and that you can only know yourself. What is your design identity? It can be something very sparkling, then something very minimal. It can be details. How it again? It's like how you feel when you see the product. I think that people know very well when they recognize the product. Oh, that is something that is typical, and then they say a brand, so when you have succeeded, that people can see, can guess on the product, or even don't guess. Sometimes we make new developments and I wear them myself, and I have friends saying like, is that yours? If the question is too much, maybe we have gone too far away from our identity, or sometimes we are just pushing it. So I think that is like the identity, brand, DNA, the product DNA, I mean. Then we have the brand, and it's the same thing. It's like how you communicate. There's so many brands that have beautiful, content, but it doesn't look any different from most of the other content that another brand has. Everything looks very similar, and you don't stand out. And you have to find a way to stand out, and it's not easy. And sometimes you get lost, but you have to stand out. So also there, you have to have like the DNA in your communication, sometimes that people can recognize, and like, and to make them be more loyal to
Yeah, and
why should I
connect.
buy this shoes from that brand when my heart says that I wanted to buy it from this brand.
Right. And early on, when obviously resources are limited, not only financial, but experience, time, energy,
Mm.
everything, what can people work on towards, developing better product, developing better brand? Is it mostly about execution and volume and getting better and improving your skill set so you can have better decision making into those specific directions?
I would say focus. I think that is the first mistake.
Why?
It's so easy.
Can we talk more
It's
about
so
that?
easy to make. You want to do so many things at the same time, and you add products, you add product categories, or you make the collection too big. You offer like many, many, many products because you cannot decide what. But and that is, I mean, also for us, it's super difficult. It's something that we always challenged by, because of course you always have new ideas and you want to improve and you want to do something else. And on the product level, you have products that are already working, but you need to have more products that are working. So you add on, and then you have to keep the old one and add the new ones. And also in communication, it's so easy. In the brand communication, it's so easy to get like, oh, everyone else is doing this and that, and then you start to add like
Yeah, and there's
layers.
trends and
Oh,
fads
yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. And then you get lost because you look like more or less like someone else, or like everyone else. So I think that always to go back to the core and have your strategy. You can update your strategy. We are trying to update our strategy frequently, but it's more like, what are we keeping? What are we changing? So you don't make like new strategies. Maybe someday someone will need to do that with our brand, but I think when you are building a brand, you have to be so consequent.
Right, interesting. Yeah, that's great advice, especially early on where you can rely on trends and on speed of decision making because you don't have the resources or the knowledge or the experience on how to make those decisions. So the only thing that you can consistently rely on is your ability to focus on one thing and on trusting that if you focus on one thing and you lose all your resources and energy on doing that thing and doing that well, you'll slowly develop a good product and you'll slowly develop a good brand as a
Yeah.
result.
I really think this is so important, and I can see so many brands that have succeeded, that have done exactly that, and I can also see so many brands that are struggling, that
Forgot
you know
that.
I don't got that. So, and even having that, or even trying to have that, it's still difficult
Yeah,
because
because it's forgetting. It's doing
yeah,
that and it's doing
you
that
focus.
consistently without falling victim to the nature of the industry that always incentivizes ever-changing differences and opinions because of fads, because of trends, because this is
Absolutely.
something's popular and yeah, it's easy to forget.
And I mean, you talked about trends, and it's quite interesting because we are in fashion, and all of us are affected by trends. That's part of the whole idea with fashion. But it's important to understand this trend suits us, or this trend does not suit us. So always going back, and of course you have to be contemporary. You have to offer products that people want now, and they always look a little bit different than they did like a few years ago. But it's also important not to get lost and trying to do things that everybody does, because then everybody does it, and then you have a lot of competition. But if you do it in your own way, you interpret that trend, whatever it is, and you do it in your own way, so people can recognize it. Then they think, because that is what successful brands do.
Yeah, it's almost as if you have to accept the fact that fashion is cyclical, and because fashion is cyclical, your own success as a brand will be cyclical.
Exactly.
And chasing after consistent success at a high level is something that can be counterproductive because a lot of success in fashion is you are at the right product, the right brand at the right time of that cyclic or trending, or at the right time of that cycle. And
Yeah.
just as
And
good can be, yeah.
And if you only go for the trend, I don't say that so many does that, but if you do, that's a nightmare, because then you have to reinvent yourself. And also I think that this is the difference between being a brand and not being a brand. A brand is a consistency. It's something that people recognize. Then there are a lot of products out there in fashion that are trends, and those ones you can buy. You can buy them anywhere. You can buy them low price. You can buy them high price, but you buy them just because there is a trend. So they don't have an identity in themselves. Sometimes a brand can be a trend, of course, can be. So everybody goes for one
Course, again,
brand, but
fashion is cyclical. Sometimes the waves are in your favor, sometimes the current is in your favor, sometimes it isn't.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
it's interesting to see how everybody falls and commits this mistake constantly at every level, right? I mean, Gucci, I think, is kind of like the biggest example recently. Uh, no?
Yeah, I would say so.
Interesting. Wow.
Mm.
If you're watching this, there's a good chance you've already spent years and thousands of dollars building your brand. Maybe you have your own store. Maybe you've worked with retailers, agents, or showrooms. You've put in serious time, energy, and money on your brand. But even with all that, growth still feels inconsistent, exhausting, or just slower than it should be. And if that's where you're at, then this is for you. Because we're offering free one-on-one coaching calls. In this call, we'll sit down with you, walk through your brand, and help you figure out what's exactly getting in the way of consistent and predictable growth. Because most of the time, the problem isn't your product, it's that you don't have a clear model. You're trying to scale using outdated strategies that weren't built for scale. Maybe they worked 10 years ago, but not anymore. Your brand isn't the issue, you just don't know what to prioritize or in what order. This free coaching call is meant to give you that clarity, to help you stop guessing and start moving forward with confidence and simplicity. I've been working in fashion for over 10 years, and across hundreds of conversations and dozens of consulting projects with brand founders, I've seen the same problems come up over and over again, and most of them are fixable with the right strategy. That said, these calls take real time for me and my team, and because they're free, we can't accept everyone. So we've set up a short application. If you're serious, click the link in the description, fill out the short form, and book your call. Now, let's continue with the episode. And what what have you learned about staying consistent during this? Is it mostly about personal discipline and decision making? Is it about like strategic guidelines? Is it about branding guidelines? Again, what can people do or rely on, especially early on when they don't have any of that, to at least reach
But
them?
actually, we made a brand guideline. That was the first thing we did. We made a brand guideline. And when we were, and of course, we revisit it from time to time because you have to. But we did the big work like 2 years ago when we revisited it. And we also, because we become bigger, we have more partners, more people. So it's also more important we were having a new design. It was super important that we had a really good brand guideline to show her so she could understand. But the interesting thing, but it became clearer, we packaged it better, but the core idea was not so different from our first 12 years ago. But it was like it was elevated. We could explain it better. Maybe the first guideline was more simple. Now it's a little bit more complex, but still it is the same. And it was so interesting because when this designer started to work for us, and she said, "Oh my God, I know exactly what you mean." And she could start like at once at designing product that we needed instead of like trying to figure it out herself. But it was also like after a few years we had before, like after the pandemic, during the pandemic, we grow a lot in ecom because also we had made a strategy before the pandemic that was very focused, and then the pandemic came, and for sure it helped us. So we grow like double digit on ecom that period. And then after the pandemic, it was like the world went crazy, and everybody wanted to shop at the same time, and everybody wanted to shop. No one knew actually what was going on, and also ourselves, we got a little bit lost, and we were doing exactly as I told you now. We were trying. We had too many products that was just trendy, didn't have a clear DNA enough. The distribution was like also like everywhere. It was good distribution, but it was still not focused. And we could see that how much that could hurt us. So that was also like by learning from that, we said, "Oh my God, we have to go back to our core DNA." And one of the challenges we had is like when we talk about this girl today, it's not complicated any longer, but at that time we said like, because she's not one dimension, what do you call it, person. She's not just one thing. Like no one is just like shy, and then you are complex as personality, and so is our brand. And we have that one part of this minimalistic like style that is very Scandinavian, but we also have this like fun girl, and it was like, how are we going to mix this? But when we really did it, we understood that was exactly our strength, how we could be like unique. Because otherwise you feel like, okay, the minimalistic girl, she's very like cool and not warm, but our is. And so how should we it doesn't make it easy, but when we manage to package that, she's more in the know. I mean, she knows her stuff. She knows her literature. She knows her music. She knows her, she knows. She's not a shallow person. She's a person with a lot of personal experience. She has a depth, but that doesn't make her like cool and how do you call it? And boring. On the opposite, she makes us very, very interesting and inspiring person, and that is like the core of our brand and our woman that we are thinking of when we are designing. And then it became so easy to design for that woman when we really like broke that down.
Right. So it's not only focus in product and in strategy, but focus in branding efforts and
Yes.
adding layers to that focused approach to branding, because there's a foundational idea of what brand identity is, and you can build focused layers on top of that to build an even stronger connection with a specific customer and therefore even better products.
Yeah. And also, it's also the context that we are an accessory brand, so we don't do like a full lifestyle brand, but we do see ourselves as a lifestyle brand because we are communicating a certain lifestyle that is really like the combination of the Italian. It's very much like the Italian lifestyle that I know very well, and I have a lot of experience for my life, that has like an very high demand on quality in food or wine or clothing or whatever it is, but it's also very laid back lifestyle in the same way. And so this lifestyle part, we just made a collaboration with Italy Sigaretta that I love, that I follow and admire, because they are talking about this Italian lifestyle in a modern way that makes it feel like inspiring, also like conceptual and design wise. I really can recommend you to see that. And then of course knew us very well, and it ended up that having a big interview and a big guide on Stockholm, how to live as an Italian in Stockholm. So it was like the essence of what our brand is about, you know, the Italian know-how, but the still like the Scandinavian, how to say, this design part. So it was very interesting. And when we talk about this lifestyle, a way of living, and we talked before about how you think about the sustainability part, how you're building your strategy, who the customer is, and how the product should fit. All this together is what we call smart luxury. For us, luxury is not about the price, it is about the way you live, the choices you make on everyday basis. And this is our brand identity, and this is what we are trying to communicate through everything we do, the communication, but also the product.
Right. And how can, again, everyday entrepreneurs that are thinking about these questions to start building the right foundations for their brands and their own products, how can they know how to consistently come closer to this very, very specific but certain type of brand identity?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit like going to therapy. You have to find it out yourself, you know, who you are and who you want to be. And not only like who you want to be and then you fix something. You can do that as well. But I think that if you really decide and you feel this is what I'm good at or we are good at, and this is the also gap in the market that I see, I think that of course is very interesting, because otherwise you can just copy some other brand and do the same. But I think you have to find out yourself, because it has to be unique.
Mm, okay. And what about the packaging? Because as you said, there's two variables to branding. The important thing is, at the end of the day, the product, right? So the foundational idea when you buy a package at the grocery store, the packaging is important because it communicates exactly what you want in the most efficient way. But at the end of the day, it's the product that matters, really. But it's a combination of both if you want to optimize it. So what did you learn about packaging? So we've discussed about what you've learned about great branding, but what have you learned about the great packaging and communication of good branding?
It's interesting. It's actually my husband that makes our packaging and our logo and everything. And I think that he was part of this also from the beginning when we set up the strategy. And then it was also quite easy to know how because the packaging, for me, the package is one thing, is the box that you put your shoes in, and the bag, of course, and that is super important, and also the logo, but it's also the store or the site that is also the packaging, and everything has to
The font,
like
the social media content, the photos,
exactly everything. It all has to follow the same like brand guidelines, like what does it communicate? If it communicates something that is trendy and easy and shallow, okay, then you don't go according to your brand. Or if you like package it like our shoebox is like a dark brown shoebox, and it's quite male to do it, but we felt it like it talked to you like the quality. I mean, many also we had white boxes in the beginning, and we talked about having pink because we also had a pink aspect in our like color DNA and of the branding. But then we decided to make the dark brown, and it's really interesting because it has followed us through the stores that we have this dark brown color that is quite male, but it's like a combination, I think, of like the Scandinavian like minimalist, but also like the Italian handicraft. It feels like real. Also in the stores, we work with Italian stone from marble from south of Italy, actually from Puglia. That is also part of the packaging. And then, of course, the sites should, and the Instagram and everything else should have this feeling But you have something as well that is not only minimalistic and handicraft, but something that surprises you, that makes you see something non-expected. It can be really, really subtle, small things. That can be like when you open the box, then all the silk paper is pink and it's packaged with a pink dust bag, for example. It can be things like that, but I think that my husband has to talk more about the packaging if we go further, but I think it has to follow the full concept in the
Of course,
same
yeah,
way
yeah.
as
And I don't talk about the packaging specifically. I talk about the
or
packaging of the
packaging.
brand in general.
Yeah.
But for people starting out, do you think they need both, especially nowadays, to succeed? Or do you think as long as the foundational identity of the brand is solid, you can work on the packaging, on the details of how to communicate and how to optimize the brand uh, as you
If
go?
you
Because
have
it's
done your
everything's
home,
expensive, right? And it requires a very deep level of knowledge of your brand and its identity and how to be flexible but consistent with it, which is very difficult and it takes a lot of time to master.
of course it does, but if you have like a very clear idea of your brand's identity, then you just have to follow that. And then that you can do with, I mean, we are experts of doing it with very little money. I mean, you can do it without making huge investment, because it can be very, I mean, it has to be clear, of course, but it doesn't have to be so expensive. I mean, if you have a clear idea of, I think that going back to again and again, if you have a clear idea of your brand identity, then you know how to package your brand. You need to package it that way. And if you have a brand, you're also a creative person, then you, of
Yeah,
course,
you
you
find
get
ways to
inspired.
compromise it to get the same result. Not the ideal result, but consistently a result that's worth it if you have the
Yeah,
idea
and
and the creativity to.
yeah, I mean, you asked me before what I would have done differently. Uh, what we did do, we took it very, very slow. We took one step at a time. And sometimes I can be frustrated over that it has taken so long time and that we are not like a huge brand today. There are days that I think so. Other days, most of the days, I
I
don't
mean,
think
it's
it takes.
relative, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Or
are
you
to
feel like, oh my
the
God, why can't we? But it is the
yeah,
reason that
why we're
are
not Tory
taking on.
Burch, right? Or
Yeah, exactly. No, no, I don't want that. But I think that that is like the backside and and the positive side of the same thing. If you build a brand in the right way, it takes time and it's not rushed and you don't make fast money. You can because you are lucky to be in the right way, and there are other things, of course, that place you from like competition to everything. But I think that you have to be patient. If you do want to do something much faster that many people want, then you have to be more aggressive. But I can take TOTEME as an example. I think they have built their brand in an incredible way. You know, when they presented the brand to me the first time, Elin and Carl, I could see at once that that was going to be hugely successful
why?
because they were
Interesting.
so clear with what they wanted with their brand. They knew exactly the brand and the product, they knew exactly. And then they can just build it. Then doesn't matter, doesn't say that it's not challenging. Everybody has challenges, especially in the beginning or when
Right,
they're
but there's a
big.
very clear path, a very clear direction, and with that consistency and with that straight vision, if you
Yeah.
get the if the waves are in your favor,
Mm.
progress can be very, very fast and explosive.
Yeah. And
Okay,
sometimes it's very fast, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah.
interesting. And based on the nature of our conversation so far, do you think what we've discussed has been a key and the most important aspect of ATP success so far, or do you think are there other aspects that we are missing on?
No, I think that it's very much that. Then it's, of course, it's a lot about timing and things that happen around you in the world that you cannot affect. That makes, I mean, I said before that we were in the beginning of Instagram, that helped us a lot, but then it was a pandemic, it didn't help, and then so the circumstances, of course, affects more than you want to sometimes. Sometimes it goes better than you thought because of the circumstances. Sometimes it doesn't. But for me, this is the only way. It's a little bit like a personality. Do I want to be myself, or do I want to pretend to be someone else? For me, this is what I don't like to say so much fashion, but this is what this industry is so much about. That's why I love it. Is this part with the product and the brand and the packaging, as you said, that is the fun part. And I can be proud of that I built a brand and a product in this way. And then if it's the biggest in the world, or if it's the smallest in the world, that doesn't really matter. I mean, of course, everybody wants to grow more and find more customers, but I think that the most important is this.
Interesting. Okay, and let's talk a little bit more about focus, since it is such a big, important idea for successful branding. How far, and based on your experience, how far can you take focus? Like, how far can a brand be? We're just going to be doing shoes. We're just going to be focusing on this is a brand identity and this is our packaging. Again, not literal packaging, but our communications, I guess. How far can you take it as a brand in this day forward with that philosophy? Because there's layers to how complex the decision making can get, right? You can be very focused in your categories. You can be very focused on your communications. You can be very focused on your strategy. You can be very focused on your marketing and sales channels. But you'll reach a level when you can be like, okay, we still need to be focused, but at the same time, we need to be we need to start diversifying. Where's that sweet spot, do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question that I should make to myself,
Yeah,
maybe.
you it's a
I
question I
think,
ask myself every day.
but I think that you know. I mean, I can feel. I mean, for me, focus is not only about just doing the same thing all over and over again, because that, of course, doesn't develop anyway. So focusing is more about believing in what you do and taking one step at a time. And when you take the next step, of course, you have to focus on that. And then it's about how you evolve the brand or you add on things. And you know, my career, I have a nice career, but I never decided when I was 18 what I was going to do when I was 50, because then maybe I would even have limited myself, saying like, oh my God, I would like to be
Right.
the best known shoe brand in Sweden. And then you arrive after that already. So I think that you have to take it when it comes. But for us is to be recognized internationally. We are known internationally, but to be more top of mind, that is my main focus, if I should say that all the focus are going to. And I think that we have, I don't want to stay a small brand. It has no sense by itself. I want to show this product and brand to as many people as possible. So how do you do that? Okay, you stay focused, but then you have to add new layers and new focuses step by step, like we did in the beginning. We started with the sandals, but we knew that, okay, as soon as we can, we will add the shoes, and then we will add the bags, and then we will add. And right now, the focus has been D&I design and to focus the brand. And then once we have done that, then of course we can expand on different levels. I think this is also what fashion and product and brand is about, always to find new ways. It's not like ATP product looks the same today as it did 10 years ago. Of course it has evolved, it has to.
Right.
And with the branding.
Which is also one of the biggest reasons why staying consistent and focused with brand is so challenging, because you're always trying to find flexible ways to get to the same direction, but sometimes through exploring those flexible alternatives that you need to do as a brand to stay relevant, to survive, to stay consistent in this industry is where you can lose the path to your initial and most important destination.
Absolutely. No, because you can really get lost when I mean, for example, when we started the brand in 2011, it was so difficult, it was impossible to find certified products in leather. So we couldn't take that. We couldn't choose that. So we were like, okay, what should we do? We choose this leather that is what we can explain the most sustainable, because it had no extra chemicals, blah, blah, blah. And that was, we were doing it for so many years and we were so limited by that. So in the end, we were questioning ourselves, can we really reach the next level with working so much with just this material? And we realized we couldn't. So we had to like break a rule to be able to take the next step. the good thing was that we had been in contact with so many tanneries in Italy, and I knew also from my experience in Filipa K and experience I had done as a consultant as well, that Italian leather production or tanning processes are one of the most sustainable in the world. It's very, very high level. But it didn't matter that I knew it, because I needed to have a way that the customer understood it. And today there is a certification that these tanneries can get certified. Of course, there's the third part, so it's a very, very difficult certification. It costs a lot of money. But a lot of brands, not only us, are demanding this today. So all of a sudden open a new possibility. When we decide, okay, we have to widen our material base, then we realize that, okay, we have to change focus. The focus should not be the material. The focus should be how we are working sustainable. And okay, how should we communicate that to the end customer? Because communicating sustainability, if you do it the real way, it's impossible for the customer to understand. But how can we communicate? Yeah, the certification is real. It's a real certification. Okay, this is the way. So today, 100% of our products are certified leathers, and that was a game changer. So sometimes you can change path because it's the right timing.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. And why do you think it's so difficult? Like, other than the topics that we've explored, what other factors that maybe we haven't discussed so far do you think are reasons of why it's so difficult to stay consistent with the brand and so focused with the brand in the direction?
I don't know if I can answer that, but I can do what I think is difficult today. The most difficult part is like, since compared to when we were like small and not known at all, every contact we did with Instagram or people, we got in right. But today it's such a buzz. It's so much noise. It's so many brands. It's so much product. It's so much communication. So it's so easy to get lost in this. So to build brand awareness, not at the first level, I think we are quite good at doing that, but to reach out to more people, to offer them, to make them even see your product and your brand, I think it's very, very difficult. And today, or you invest a lot of money in paid marketing, but that I don't think is the right way for us to go, because that is not the way you build brand. You can maybe
Right.
you brand awareness in one way that you see that brand like goes by, but does it really makes you to explore it more? So we had to be seen maybe more in a traditional way, like in a context. Of course, the wholesale is very important there, but also in other ways, to collabs, of course, it's a good way of getting seen out there from new people. So I think that is the absolute most challenging thing, to create like the next level of brand awareness, to make
Yeah, that is
people
still consistent with the same
yeah,
foundational idea. Because
yeah.
again, when you're trying to go for brand awareness, especially at this point where you're trying and you need to be the loudest one in the room, a lot of times that behavior, that focus takes you away from the foundational idea of what your brand was about.
Yes, or doing like, okay, we just push out a lot of ads with our brand all over Instagram and Facebook, but that is not the way our brand is. So it doesn't work. I mean, even if we had the money and wanted to spend them, I don't think it works with that kind of woman. She has to find us in another way. So yeah, that is the most challenging that we are facing all the time. It's like how to reach out to more people. Is it celebrities? Is it podcasts? Is it magazines? Is it, at the end of the day, the friend of the friend? You see it on a girl that you trust, and you say, "What is that?" And it grows organically.
Hmm.
So I think is difficult.
Okay. What do you think it is without any evidence?
What do you mean? Sorry, I
What
don't
out
get
of
it.
all these different marketing strategies, since awareness is the biggest challenge,
You mean
what
which
do you
one of
think?
them?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's a combination, but I do think that the best way or the only way we can do, because we cannot do it in a way that is too far from our brand. We can stretch the brand, but we cannot go too far away from it. So I think there's a combination of wholesale. Of course, it can be celebrity, but I don't know. But I think for sure being represented on the right people that other people are seeing is like the most important part.
Yeah, so association. If I admire, if I like this person, he wears those products, I therefore as an extension will feel that level of connection.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, which goes back to the foundational idea of create something that you believe in, stay consistent, know who you're designing for, and all these very important decisions will come very naturally, especially the early on you are in your brand building process, because there's not a lot of variables happening. It's just you, a product, and a customer.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
true.
Amazing, my love. And last question.
Mm.
Any other very big, important pieces of advice that you think are missing in today's fashion landscape for
Hmm.
the next generation of fashion entrepreneurs?
I know what I miss. I miss more specialty stores, especially in the big cities that are a little bit bold. I mean, there are a few, of course. The Line was one of them. The apartment in New York, I thought that was an amazing concept. Today in New York, there are like there are a few, but it's not like it was like 10 years ago. Because I think that the customer, especially the customer that we talk about, she needs a context. She's not only staying online. It's too boring. You need to feel and touch and experience
Connected.
most of it. Yeah. And that has become more challenging because of landscape of rentals, and that are very expensive. It's very, very difficult. So I understand that. But that is something that I hope we will see coming back a little bit more. It has been also because of the pandemic, everything that had
Yeah,
happened, that
everything was
many
funneled
disappeared.
and then everything was
Yeah.
became very focused.
We do have a lot of those stores that are super nice all over the world, but I do think that those stores are so important. I hope there
Interesting.
will be more great people also to build this kind of brands, because that is also a kind of brand to have like a concept store that says something and offers something to that customer. I myself, I love to go into these kind of stores.
Yeah, it reinforces
Uh,
the same idea of just look internally and look at what you wanted to create instead of
yeah.
worrying too much about is this going to be in Nordstrom's or is this going to be just what do you want to create? And therefore things will happen as an extension. The customer that you want to speak with there exists. It's just connect. The stores that you want to be in
Mm,
either exist, and if not, it's a perfect opportunity for you to find your own place and your own voice and your way to do things.
yeah. Another thing that I also, an advice I would give is to surround yourself with people, the right people. I mean, that's easy to say, but I think that is like the success. I mean, we started out just me and Jonas. He's not with the company any longer. He founded another brand lately, but he left like 4 years ago. So we worked together 10 years. But apart from Jonas, that was like a super important person for me in the beginning, is also the girls that have worked with me since I started to hire. Many of them have worked 10 years, 9 years. And to have like, to build people and to find them first of all, but to surround yourself with people that believe in the same thing as you do, and to give them, of course, space to influence that. That I think is super important. But that is maybe not the first step you do, but as soon as you do it, I think it's so important.
Hmm. So another very important foundation. Amazing. Okay, Mila. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the
Thank
time.
you.
And thank you for your willingness to share the information. I'm sure others will
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. Thank you.
If this episode resonated with you, and if you're building a real brand, but growth still feels inconsistent, overwhelming, or just not to the scale your brand deserves, we're offering free one-on-one coaching calls. And this call will help you identify exactly what's getting in your way and what to do next. These calls are limited and application-based. So if you're serious, click the link in the description, fill out your form, book your call, and if we think we can help, we'll confirm your spot. Hope you enjoyed this podcast episode, and see you on the next one.